Hello and welcome to the CASTcast. This is the podcast for the Association for Software Testing, and more specifically, the Conference for the Association for Software Testing. I'm Michael Larson.
And I'm Claire Moss.
And we are coming to you live from CAST.
CAST 2017.
Well, we're recording it live. When you hear it, it won't be live, but You know what we mean.
Close enough.
And we are happy to be joined right now by Erik Davis.
Hey, everybody.
All right, so part of the deal this week, in fact, part of the deal with any CAST conference, is tester games. It's a common and much beloved part of the program, and in fact, we wouldn't even be able to really call it a CAST if tester games weren't happening. And I was talking with Erik about setting it up and running them and what was going on with it, and we realized that there is a little bit of a there's tester games, and then there are games that testers play, and they're not necessarily exactly the same definition. Correct?
Yep.
So, okay, help me out here. So, games testers play. Yeah, I get that because I'm a tester. I like games.
Sure.
But I could play board games. I could play video games. I could be dancing in front of my computer with one of those movement pickups. But what are tester games then?
So the way that I look at it is a tester game is really any game that you're playing with the intent of helping educate someone about some concept in testing. So it's an approach to something, it's paying attention to different variables, focusing, defocusing, whatever you want it to be. So it's really the purpose of the game more than the game itself.
Okay, so you are learning some kind of testing related skill.
Yes.
As part of the playing.
Yep.
So we were talking a little bit earlier today about an example game that we've played this a number of times at CAST and at other conferences as well, and it's called the pen game, and it's a very simple game, and most of us who are hearing it, in fact, many longtime CAST attendees are probably grumbling right now and groaning, saying, "You had to bring that one up."
Of course.
So, without going into too much detail, but the idea behind the game is that it's more than just playing a simple game. It's actually teaching you things that can help you in your testing process. The idea is that you have to model behavior. You know that there's only one possibility that you can select that determines what the state of the game is, whether it's a yes or a no. And there's only one thing that can be happening that can determine what that is, and you have to find it. And by finding it, you have to model behavior, you have to experiment and see if your model holds up to scrutiny, and if it doesn't, you have to create a new one. And that's very much like what we do as testers.
I feel like there's also an opportunity to try to talk your way through the problem. Maybe it's like getting feedback from people who are in the peanut gallery watching you, or maybe it's from the person running the game. And I think in my experience on an Agile team, it's most of my work is with other individuals. So that's a very important part of like teamwork and figuring it out. But I don't know if everyone does that when they play.
It depends on the coach or the person running the game and what they're trying to teach or trying to convey when they're running it. I like running some games that are basically their primary value is getting people together in a social way so that they interact. I played Flux a lot at my last company with my team and other groups, and at the beginning it was just a kind of crazy game, and people played it because it was fun. And then after one of the sessions, somebody on my team said, I learned a lot about projects playing this. I was like, what did you learn about projects? We're playing Monty Python Flux. And he said, well, you try to work with a plan. Like, I've got this idea, like this, I'm going to do all these things to win the game, and then a round and a half in, the goal changes, and now none of that makes any sense anymore, and you have to start all over again. So it helps me realize that, having a long-term goal is a good idea, but don't get too attached to it, because tomorrow it may be completely gone, which I thought was brilliant. And I was even trying to run the game as a coach, kind of, and I had people playing it, learning things that I wasn't even trying to teach.
So I had an interesting experience playing Flux with my colleagues as well. In that case, I said, hey, let's play Flux. And my colleague said, oh, you must hate that game. And I said, no, it's one of my favorites. And he was very puzzled because in his mind, I had a very structured preference for work. But I loved the uncertainty of it, just the sheer absurdity of trying to get your way to work out.
Yeah.
Where it was more just like let go and see what happens. And I love exploratory testing, so that suits me just fine. But I think he was more expecting me to want the structure. And so it helped us to work through some team dynamics, actually. Yep. More interpersonal stuff than about like necessarily how the teams work with structure, but what do the people want from the work.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So what are some examples of some of the favorite games? I mean, we know, for those who've been tormented by the pen game, we know that one. We know that Set is a very famous game, and Claire just shook her fist and said,
No,
yeah.
I'm shaking my fist because I'm thinking dice game.
Okay, and dice game, yep, absolutely.
It's a classic.
And I guess so why are these considered perennial favorites?
My thought is, so the first time I encountered most of these games was at my first CAST conference in San Jose, which was
2012.
There you go. Thank you. I was going to say a long time ago, and that's not that useful. And the games that people had there were the dice game. It was Zendo. It was Art Show. Someone may have had Set. Everybody had Set. It seemed. It's changed some over time. That people have added in other games just to play games that they think are fun. But I think those have been around for a long time, partly because they're generally compact and easy to carry with you, and you can modify them as much as you want. I mean, Art Show, you need a deck of cards. That's probably one of the simplest ones you can have that you can play more than once with someone, whereas the pen game, you do it once, and people have a general idea of what to look for. The dice game, you need to invest a little more into it if you want to do it beyond just the base rule that everybody who's played the game knows, like the starter rule.
And do note, folks, we are being vague here deliberately because we're not giving away, we're not going to tell you how any of the games are played. We're just going to describe them here. If you want to play them, for tonight, as a matter of fact, it starts at 7 p.m. and it's going to be in
Davidson
Room C. So if you are actually at CAST and if you actually listen to this, if you're at CAST and you actually listen to this, I want to give you a high five, number one. That's awesome. If you are going to be coming tonight and you're listening to this and you happen to hear it, that's where we're going to be doing it. And we're also going to be doing games on Friday night as well?
Yes, in a different room.
Different room. Sorry.
Area.
You'll have to come and figure out what room it's going to be in for that. But the point that we're saying, again, is that we don't tell you what the games are. We believe that everybody needs to experience them for the first time, deal with the frustration with them. And some of these games, let's face it, they are frustrating. They can be absolutely aggravating. And that's part of the design and it's part of the joy of those games, is the fact that you want to be able to learn and see what you can discover about your thinking process by playing them.
Well, it's not just about thinking, but it's about managing your feelings, right? Because I'm an ENFP, so I'm feelings all the time, and I just want to like come out and say that, because there will be people who say, well, when you notice that you're having feelings, I'm like, no, it's more like, when does my feeling change? So when I notice that I'm feeling frustrated, that's really helpful information, whether I'm working or playing a game. Noticing the frustration and then being able to do something with it, with that information, is really helpful.
If I remember correctly, you and I both did the pen game the very first time with Griffin at Star East, wasn't it?
I think so.
I think it's the first time I remember meeting you. Was that the first time I met you in person?
I think so.
Yeah. And we both had to go through the game, and it was just funny watching both of us deal with it, and
very differently,
and we both kind of laughed at each other. The things that we thought were, oh, that's kind of funny how she's reacting, or oh, look at him, he's losing his mind at this, and we just both laughed because we realized we both processed this game in a very different way.
Yeah.
And it taught us a lot about just, hey, this is how I think, this is how I consider these things, and I hadn't realized that it really does tie into my thought process, my problem solving, and all that goes with it.
It's really funny that you mentioned that because I remember wanting to help the next person, and I was like, no,
Yes.
don't give it away. But I'm like, oh, I want to help my buddy, my team member. And I realized like that is so common in my workplace. Like one of my old developers said that he felt like he had so much care for the team that whenever there was a problem, he wanted to jump on that grenade. And he realized that that was keeping other people from learning from the experience of suffering through it. So wanting to prevent other people's suffering actually didn't long-term help to prevent their suffering.
Well, that's one thing I was going to say about, the pen game is a wonderfully frustrating game. And since it tends to be you play it once and then once you know it, you can't really play it again. Mm-hmm. But it can be really interesting to watch other people do it after you get how it plays, or even the dice game, even if you don't know the rule, seeing how other people approach it without jumping in and saying, hey, it's the thing you're supposed to do.
Right.
Seeing how they process it, I think that's a really great observation, that it's letting other people learn how to do something and potentially fail on their own will give you input into how other people are approaching things. So
It's so I hate holding back. I'm just gonna say, like, I'm gonna have to put my hand over my mouth or something. So if you see me doing that, it's not because you're doing it wrong. It's because I really want to jump in and be part of it too.
Well, anyway, if you happen to be in the vicinity and you want to come join us for Tester Games, please do so. And if you are not in the vicinity and you are curious, by all means, please feel free. I can't say go to www.associationforsoftwaretesting.org and sign up anymore, because that's not what we're doing, because it's actually happening. But if you would like to learn a little bit more about Tester Games in this regard, I'm going to suggest that you just leave a comment on the thread, since we post these via Tunes to Tube at YouTube. Go ahead and leave a comment and ask us, share what your favorite Tester games are, or share what games you'd like to learn more about, and we can certainly do something about that.
And I will say that sometimes you have an opportunity to play these tester games at meetups or local events.
Yep.
So if you have someone who's run a tester game before, then you may be able to bring them to your local event so you can experience it for yourself.
And with that, we want to say thank you very much for joining us for the AST CASTcast, and we look forward to getting together with you again very soon. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, y'all.
thank you.